A film written on yellow legal pads by a guy who was supposed to be doing stunts. A director nobody wanted. A star who called the script the worst he'd ever read, and signed on anyway. And a budget that got slashed 20% 2 days before cameras rolled. The result? The second highest grossing film of 1977. Behind Star Wars. Barely. These are 15 facts about the movie that threw an entire state into chaos and accidentally created a legend on 4 wheels. Fact 1. The script was literally the worst. Hal Needham, Reynolds' best friend and pool house tenant for 12 years, wrote the script on yellow legal pads. Didn't even have it typed up. When Reynolds read it, he said, "This is the worst script I've ever read. I'll do it anyway." Needham had spent years trying to get anyone interested. No studio wanted to work with a stuntman. The moment Reynolds said yes, a B-movie pipe dream became a mainstream film. The worst script Reynolds ever read made him the biggest box office hit of the year, except for one. Fact 2. The budget got axed 2 days before shooting. Universal signed off on $5.3 million. 2 days before the first day of filming, the studio sent a hatchet man to Atlanta, someone whose only job was to take money away. Budget slashed to $4.3 million. Reynolds was already getting $1 million as his fee. Needham had $3.3 million left and spent 30 hours rewriting the entire shooting schedule from scratch. The film grossed over $300 million worldwide. Fact 3. Coors beer was actually illegal east of the Mississippi. That sounds like a movie joke. It wasn't. Coors wasn't pasteurized, required refrigeration, and couldn't be sold east of Texas due to transport and licensing laws. The idea came when Needham noticed the hotel maid stealing Coors from the crew's fridge on a Georgia shoot, which reminded him of a 1974 Time magazine article about real beer smugglers. The contraband in this film wasn't a MacGuffin. It was a real crime, and the script a true story nobody had thought to write down. Fact 4. The Trans Am was never part of the plan. Needham spotted an ad for the new 1977 Pontiac Trans Am in a magazine and knew instantly, that's the car. He asked Pontiac for 6. Pontiac sent 4. By the last day of shooting, 3 had been totaled. The 4th wouldn't start. Another crew had to push it into frame for the final scene. After the film, Trans Am sales nearly doubled within 2 years. Pontiac outsold the Chevrolet Camaro for the first time ever. All from a magazine ad Needham tore out on a whim. Fact 5. Jackie Gleason's character had a real name. Sheriff Buford T. Justice wasn't invented. It was the real name of a Florida highway patrolman known to Reynolds' father, himself once police chief of Riviera Beach, Florida. Even "sumbitch," Gleason's battle cry throughout the film, came from Reynolds' father, who used it so often his son never forgot it. The sheriff was basically a love letter to a real cop and a real dad. Fact 6. Almost every line was improvised. There was a script. Nobody followed it. Gleason improvised nearly every line, and Needham gave him free rein. The diner scene where Justice sits right next to the bandit without recognizing him? Gleason's idea. Junior, the hapless son? Also Gleason. I can't be in the car alone. Give me someone to play off. The best character in the film was born from a whim that no writer ever had. So far, this sounds like a happy production. Now it gets complicated. Fact 7. Sally Field took the role because someone called her ugly. Field had just filmed Sybil, one of the most intense performances of the decade. Critics loved the work. Then they wrote, "Sally Field is ugly." Her response, she called Reynolds back and said yes. He'd fought for her when the studio had doubts. That act of defiance became one of the most charming on-screen chemistries of 1970s comedy. And a real love story. Reynolds and Field became a couple during filming. Fact 8. Reynolds and Gleason refused to film together. After their first shared scene, Reynolds demanded all further joint appearances be cut. Variety reported it. Why was never explained. The two played off each other without ever really being in the same room. Masterful editing. A director who knew how to shoot around a problem. It gives the film a strange quality. The greatest tension is between two men who almost never look each other in the eye. Fact 9. Eastbound and Down was written overnight. Needham asked Jerry Reed for a title song at the end of production. Reed promised one and showed up the next morning with a guitar and nothing written. He played Eastbound and Down. Needham said nothing. Reed, nervous. If you don't like it, I can change it. Needham's reply, if you change one single note, I will kill you. One of the biggest hits of Reed's career, written after a long night out. Fact 10. 3 Dukes of Hazzard stars are hidden in the film. Ben Jones, John Schneider, and Sonny Schroyer all play small, uncredited roles, and all 3 became the core cast of The Dukes of Hazzard. Schroyer played a cop in both. Reynolds returned the favor, showing up in the 2005 Dukes film, this time as Boss Hogg. 2 of the most iconic Southern cult franchises of the era were tangled up with each other before either of them actually existed. Fact 11. Critics hated it. The audience didn't care. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars. Other reviews were worse, cheap, stupid, disposable. Then it outgrossed Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Annie Hall, and Saturday Night Fever combined. That year, Annie Hall won the Oscar for Best Picture, and Smokey and the Bandit was the second highest-grossing film of the year. The audience saw something the critics refused to. Fact 12. Trans Am sales exploded. Pontiac couldn't believe it. The Trans Am outsold the Chevrolet Camaro for the first time in years. Pontiac president Alex Mayer personally promised Reynolds a free new Trans Am every year, for life. In 2022, Reynolds' personal promotional Trans Am went to auction at Barrett-Jackson. Estimated value, around $80,000. Final price, $495,000. A legend has its price. Fact 13. The film turned CB radio into a mass movement. CB radios already had a fan base in 1977. Smokey and the Bandit turned them into a national craze. Warning system, network, community, all in one. A movie about beer smugglers turned trucker technology into a mainstream hobby. Suddenly, millions of Americans had a handle and a reason to use it. Fact 14. Part 3 was a disaster because Reynolds walked. Part 3 had no Hal Needham and no Sally Field. Reynolds rejected the script outright and showed up only for a brief cameo at the very end. The film revolved entirely around Gleason's sheriff, budgeted at $9 million, grossed $7. That was the end of the franchise. This time, there was no Reynolds to save the script. Fact 15. Reynolds called it the best time of his life. Burt Reynolds had one of Hollywood's most schizophrenic careers: Deliverance, Boogie Nights, Bandit. In 2015, he said Smokey and the Bandit was the most fun he'd ever had on any film. The film whose script he'd called the worst he'd ever read. That lost its budget. That critics wrote off as trash was, for him, the best. Sometimes the things that have no right to work are exactly the ones that do. A stuntman wrote the script on yellow legal pads. The studio cut the budget 2 days before filming. The Trans Ams kept getting totaled. The lead actor thought the script was terrible and showed up anyway. At the end of the year, there it was, behind Star Wars, ahead of everything else. Sometimes all it takes is nerve, sometimes a black Trans Am, and sometimes a truckload of illegal beer.